Okay, naming alkyl halides. Uh, got a little bit of an issue here. I'm sure you're going to love it. The issue is that when we start naming these types of molecules, a lot of them were kind of known, and we called them certain names before Iupac came along and tried to standardize everything. So these guys had common names before Iupac came along and gave them the systematic name. And unfortunately, you kind of have to learn both of them. All right, alkyl halides. The Iupac name would say, all right, the chlorine, the halogen, chlorine, bromine, fluorine, iodine, it's just S branch. It is simply a branch on an alkane. Just like a methyl is a branch and an ethyl is a branch, a chloro or bromo is just a branch. And so if you had CH3, CH2, Cl, our longest chain, two carbons in our longest chain, so ethane is our parent, there's a chlorine on one of them, and so it's chloroethane. Whether the chlorine was on this carbon or this carbon, it doesn't matter, so it's just chloroethane. It's not one chloroethane or two chloroethane, it's just chloroethane. But once you get three carbons with a fluorine on it, okay, 1, 2, 3 carbons in our longest chain. Our first branch, our fluorine here, let's call this carbon number 1 so that the fluorine branch is on carbon number 1. It's a fluoro group, so this is 1-fluoropropane. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 carbons in our longest chain, so it's a butane. If the bromine would either be on carbon 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2. The bromine's on carbon 2, so this is 2-bromobutane. Easy peasy. All right. The problem is that the common name of these says that, okay, Iupac, you want to have the parent to be the alkane and the halogen to be the branch. The common name says the halogen is the main molecule, is the parent, and this is an alkyl group branch. The common name says, okay, well, CH3, CH2 is an ethyl group. That's the ethyl branch. And so the common name for this would be ethyl chloride. Ethyl chloride would be the common name for that. And note, unlike Iupac names, common names have spaces. There's a space, ethyl space chloride. Iupac names, if we look at all these names, never a space. There's no spaces in Iupac names. Common names have that space, ethyl chloride. So what would the common name for this be? Yeah, propyl fluoride. Just propyl fluoride. All right. What would the common name for this be? CH3CH CH3F. The common name for this would be isopropyl fluoride. This would be isopropyl fluoride. What would be the Iupac name? 2-fluoropropane. So Iupac, it's longest chain, 3 carbons, propane, fluorine, a fluoro on carbon 2, 2-fluoropropane. That's Iupac. Common name, it's a fluoride, and this is an isopropyl group, therefore it's isopropyl fluoride. All right. So what really gets a little crazy is when you look at CH3Cl, CH2Cl2, and CHCl3. We'll just put them down here. All right. CH3Cl. What would Iupac call this? Well, methane is the smallest one carbon chain is methane, so Iupac would call this chloromethane. But the common name is methyl chloride. Iupac chloromethane. Common name methyl chloride. What is CH2Cl2? Iupac says, okay, CH2Cl2, one carbon in our longest chain, and so the parent molecule is methane. There's two chlorines on it, so Iupac calls this dichloromethane. Dichloromethane. The common name for this, in the common usage, the CH2 group is called a methylene group. CH3 is methyl, CH2 is methylene because it's got one less hydrogen. It's leaner, it's skinnier by one hydrogen, so it's methylene. So the common name for this is methylene chloride. And this is kind of weird because half the world calls it dichloromethane, half the world calls it methylene chloride. I use both names interchangeably. Dichloromethane, methylene chloride, they are the exact same molecule. And lots of people forget that. Remember, CH2Cl2, dichloromethane, methylene chloride, same thing. All right. Very common to mix these up because both of these names, dichloromethane, methylene chloride, used all the time. And finally, CHCl3. What would Iupac call it? Well, chloromethane, dichloromethane. Iupac would call this trichloromethane. You'll be happy to note, or maybe not, nobody calls this trichloromethane. This is called chloroform. That's chloroform. So even the common name doesn't even follow the directions that well. Yeah, what you gonna do, eh? So, now when you are just naming regular molecules, let's go back to Iupac. Small molecules will have their common names. Once you get bigger molecules, common name just becomes very not easy, not nice. And so once you get slightly bigger molecules than 3 carbons or 4 carbons, we go to Iupac and not a common name. The chlorine is just a branch. Everything else is the same. So here, note, there's nothing special about this chlorine. If this is carbon 1, carbon 2 has a methyl branch on it. If this were carbon 1, it would be carbon 1, 2, 3 with a chlorine. So we're going to start numbering from this end because it's closest to the branch. C comes before M, so this is 4-chloro, 2-methyl hexane. All right. Can you see why this is 3-chloro, 5-ethyl heptane? Chlorine's on branch number 3. If we start numbering from this end, 1, 2, 3. It's an ethyl on 3 or a chloro on 3. So why did we start numbering here? Just because C comes before E in the alphabet. Since it would either been 3-chloro, 5-ethyl, or 3-ethyl, 5-chloro. Since it's both 3 and 5, we'll just put the chloro first because it on 3 because of alphabetical. There's nothing special, it's just simply alphabetical. And so, yeah, so that's why this, you just exchange the chlorine for a fluorine, and all of a sudden it becomes 3-ethyl, 5-fluoroheptane. And you would number it from this end in this molecule. Kind of crazy. It's the way it is. All right. Alcohols. Naming alcohols. Things get kind of fun when we name alcohols. Your book really doesn't go into naming the alcohols too much at this point. or really naming the alkyl halides, and I think that's a travesty. That's why I do it. I think that you need to get this naming down because you're going to deal with these molecules all the time. Naming alcohols. All right. We're going to go by Iupac's rules to begin with. It uses what they call the substitutive nomenclature, just like we were doing before, just like the rules we're following, where you've got the carbon number, you've got what the branch is as a prefix, you've got the parent compound, but when you have an OH group, your molecule is no longer an alkane, it's an alcohol. Something very important, Iupac treats halogens, chlorine, bromine, and iodine, as just a branch. A halogen is just a branch. Alcohols are not just branches. They are the parent of the molecule. The molecule is an alcohol, which means the OH, the carbon containing the OH, must be part of your longest chain. Even if there was a way to have a longer chain that didn't contain the carbon of the OH, it doesn't matter. The carbon containing the OH must be part of the longest chain, and the carbon containing the OH must be given the smallest number possible. Now, you always have to start at the end. You always have to start numbering the carbon chain at the end, but you're going to give the carbon containing the OH the smallest number possible. It is always the first branch. The carbon containing the OH is going to be the most important carbon, give them the smallest number possible. So here it's easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons in our longest chain. We're making sure the carbon containing the OH has the lowest number, easy number 1 here. So now note we have a methyl group at carbon 4. So this is 4-methyl 1-hexanol. So even though we would say, wait, shouldn't our parent be hexane? Hexane? No, because it's an alcohol. Now it's a hexanol. So we drop the E and add OL because the parent is the alcohol. 4-methyl 1-hexanol. And then they got kind of crazy and they said, well, since the 4 tells you where the methyl group, the 1 should tell you where the all is. It looks like the 1 is telling you where the hex is. Where the hex is, and that doesn't make sense. So Iupac is now changing, instead of 4-methyl 1-hexanol, they're changing it to 4-methyl hexan-1-ol. I do not like this, but that's the way they're doing it. To say, okay, the 1 tells you where the all is. I think if you saw 1-hexanol, you'd realize the 1 tells you where the all is. All right. So that's how you would name that. Let's look at some other alcohols. How would you name some other alcohols? Well, let's look at this one. How would you name this one? Well, how many carbons in our longest chain? Can we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? 7 carbons in our longest chain. Note, this carbon here is closest to the branch, but that doesn't matter because if we started carbon 1 here, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The carbon containing the OH would get number 5. If we did it this way, 1, 2, 3, the carbon containing the OH would be carbon 3. So that's the way we're going to number this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So can we see how this would be 6-methyl 3-heptanol? 6-methyl 3-heptanol. Or in the new way, 6-methyl heptan-3-ol. Ugh, I don't like that. Okay. That's how we name these things. How we name our alcohols. But just like some of our other issues with alkyl halides, we've got to worry about common names. also. So, let's look at some small molecules and their common names. All right. CH3OH. How would Iupac name it? What would the common name for it be? Well, Iupac is pretty straightforward. We've got a methane group here, but it's an OH, it's an alcohol, so Iupac would call this methanol. The common name ends in the word alcohol. This is a methyl group attached to our alcohol, so the common name is methyl alcohol. Methyl alcohol. Or methanol. Same molecule. Methanol, methyl alcohol. What about CH3CH2OH? Can you see that Iupac would call this ethanol? What would the common name for it be? Ethyl alcohol. All right. A few things. Methanol comes from distillation of wood, so this is also known as wood alcohol. Ethanol comes from the distillation of grains or fruits. So it is usually called grain alcohol. Most ethanol gets derived from corn. The ethanol that's in your car's gasoline is corn, grain alcohol. Note, we've talked about this in lab. Methanol, extremely toxic. 40 milliliters can kill the average person. 50 milliliters, you're probably dead if you drink 50 milliliters of this. Ethanol is also toxic. 350, 400 milliliters will probably kill you, but that's quite a few. That's an entire bottle of like 80 proof tequila. So don't drink all that in an hour for sure. Do not do that. All right, but it is also toxic for you. Both these are toxic. It's just that methanol is more toxic for you. Let's see. Let's look at this one. CH3CH3OH. What would Iupac call this molecule? Well, Iupac says our longest chain is a propyl group. Which carbon number contains the OH? That's carbon number 2. So it's a propanol with the OH on carbon number 2. This is 2-propanol. What's the common name for this? Well, it's an alcohol, and this is the isopropyl group, so this is isopropyl alcohol. And so these are the two accepted names for this molecule. 2-propanol, Iupac, isopropyl alcohol, the common name. The problem is there's some people that got messed up. And so they call this, well, let's call this isopropanol. Isopropanol. What's wrong with isopropanol? Well, the problem with isopropanol is the last part, propanol, comes from the Iupac name, but the iso comes from the common name. So this actually isn't a word that comes from any system. It's not Iupac, it's not common. It's like you took Iupac and common and put them together in a blender and scrambled it, and this is what came out. So do not use isopropanol. Even though everyone knows what you're talking about, if you say, oh, that's isopropanol, it's not good because it's not a real name. It's the chemistry equivalent of the literary word, or it's actually more web-based online word. Ginormous. If I said something was ginormous, what does that mean? Well, you know what it means. Ginormous means really huge, really big. But it comes from giant and enormous. So they took two words, giant and enormous, and combined them to make ginormous. So, but I don't think Shakespeare was much into ginormous. It's not a word that you would use in normal conversation. It's in blasphemous conversation with your friends. Should be followed by an LOL or something like that. Yeah, it's ginormous. It's not real, just as isopropanol is not. It's 2-propanol or isopropyl alcohol. And I will end on that. So remember, never make the ginormous mistake of calling this isopropanol.